2 days before my daughter's wedding, the wedding I had already paid 58,000 Canadian dollars for, Amelia pushed my place card across the rehearsal table and said, "There won't be a seat for you on Saturday." Then, she placed the final invoice beside it. $17,800. The ballroom at the Harbor Crest Hotel glowed behind her with white roses, crystal glasses, and the soft gold light of Victoria's inner harbor. Everything looked beautiful. That made her words feel colder. "Daniel's family thinks it would be better if you stayed home," she continued. "You get emotional when you talk about Poland. Margaret is worried you'll make the evening uncomfortable." I looked at my daughter's face and searched for the little girl who once sat beneath my sewing table, gathering scraps of lace and calling them snow. I could not find her. Daniel stared into his wine. His mother, Margaret Mercer, adjusted the pearl bracelet on her wrist. "You can watch the live stream," she said. It may be more relaxing for everyone. I had spent 6 months altering Amelia's wedding gown by hand. I had paid the venue deposit, the florist, the photographer, the band, and the dinner now cooling in front of us. Yet somehow, I was the part of the wedding that needed to be removed. Amelia tapped the invoice with one manicured finger. "The upgrades have to be paid by tomorrow morning. The hotel still has your card on file." I folded the place card once, then again. My name disappeared inside the crease. "And the house?" I asked. For the first time, Amelia's expression changed. "What about it?" "The duplex in James Bay. Have you signed the transfer papers?" She gave a small laugh and looked at Daniel. "Mom, Dad wanted us to have it. We already chose the kitchen cabinets." Daniel finally raised his eyes. "We're meeting a contractor next week." I nodded slowly. My late husband, Piotr, had spoken about giving them the house someday. He had never completed the transfer. The final documents were still locked in the bottom drawer of my desk, unsigned. Amelia had removed my chair before confirming she owned the floor beneath it. I placed the invoice back in front of her. "I'll review this tonight," I said. Then I stood, picked up my coat, and left the ballroom without touching my dinner. Behind me, Amelia called my name, suddenly less certain. She believed she had uninvited a lonely immigrant widow who would pay anything to remain part of the family. She did not yet understand that the wedding was not the only thing still being held together by my name. When I returned to the James Bay duplex, the dress I had planned to wear to Amelia's wedding was still hanging beside the front door. Pale blue, simple. Piotr had once told me that color made my eyes look younger. I stood beneath it with my coat still buttoned, holding the folded place card in one hand and the unpaid invoice in the other. $58,000 had purchased flowers, music, photographs, and dinner for 120 guests. It had not purchased one chair for the bride's mother. I placed the invoice on my sewing table. Beside it lay the final scraps of French lace from Amelia's gown. I had sewn every pearl by hand under the same brass lamp I brought from Poland in 1992. Piotr and I arrived in Canada with 3 suitcases, a 2-year-old daughter, and less than 2,000 Canadian dollars. He found work building cabinets. I altered trousers in our basement while Amelia slept in a laundry basket padded with towels. At night, I studied English from library books. During the day, I learned how much dignity could fit inside a woman who was tired but refused to stop. Years later, I opened Second Stitch Alterations. Amelia grew up beneath the cutting table, collecting lace from the floor and wearing it like a veil. When she was 10, she made me promise I would sew her wedding dress. I kept that promise. I paid her university tuition, helped with her first Vancouver apartment, and never reminded her what those sacrifices cost. I believed love should not arrive with an invoice. Amelia had learned something different. She had begun calling only when a payment was due. Still, I excused her. Busy career, wedding pressure, a demanding future mother-in-law. I had built explanations for her the way Piotr built cabinets, carefully fitted so no truth could show through the seams. Then I remembered something he had said before he died. We were standing outside the duplex after replacing the front steps. He touched the railing and said, "A house is not a gift until both hands are ready to receive it." I went upstairs to the small office we had shared. In the bottom desk drawer, beneath his old measuring tape and tax records, sat a cream envelope marked "Property Transfer." The seal was unbroken. My phone lit up with Amelia's name. but I let it ring. I held the envelope beneath the lamp and understood that my daughter had already spent a gift I had never given her. The first time Amelia erased me from her wedding, she did it with a red pen. 6 months before the ceremony, we sat inside a cafe near Vancouver's Cole Harbor while she reviewed the speech I had written. I had planned to speak for 3 minutes. I wanted to tell Daniel how Amelia used to sleep beside my sewing machine when Piotr and I first came to Canada, and how she once wore scraps of lace around our basement like a princess. Amelia crossed out every line about Poland. Then she crossed out Piotr's name. Daniel's family doesn't need the immigration story, she said. It makes everything sound poor. I told myself she was nervous. Brides worried about details. Mothers forgave sharp words. A month later, Margaret rejected the Polish pastries I offered for the dessert table. Amelia supported her. "We're keeping the menu Canadian," she said, though the chef was serving French canapés and Italian wine. At the engagement photographs, the photographer asked me to stand beside my daughter. Amelia quickly handed me her coat and said, "Mom is helping behind the scenes." I remained outside the frame, holding the coat while Margaret stood next to her. There were other moments, small enough to excuse alone. Together, they formed a pattern. Amelia introduced me to Daniel's colleagues as Kat, never Katerina. She called Second Stitch a little alterations shop, although its income had paid her university tuition. She invited me to every meeting involving a deposit, but none involving the guest list. When the videographer requested family photographs, Amelia sent pictures of Piotr and me standing several meters apart, then asked him to crop me out because the image looked too crowded. 3 weeks before the wedding, I brought her finished gown to Vancouver. She stepped onto the fitting platform while I adjusted the hem. Margaret watched from a velvet chair. "The workmanship is lovely," she said. "Perhaps we should credit the design team in the program." Amelia met my eyes in the mirror. That would be cleaner. I had sewn 312 pearls onto that bodice. My name did not appear anywhere. That night, I still defended her. Stress, I thought. Ambition. A new family she wanted to impress. But sitting beside Piotr's unopened property envelope, I finally understood. Amelia had not removed me from her wedding 2 days ago. She had been removing me for months. One story, one photograph, and one signature at a time. My phone rang again. This time the caller was not Amelia. "Mrs. Nowak," a woman said. "This is Naomi Chen from the Harbor Crest Hotel. Did you authorize your daughter to sign your name?" "Your daughter sent us a medical explanation for your absence," Naomi said. "It claims you are emotionally unstable and should not be permitted near the reception." For a moment, I thought I had misheard her. Then I looked at Piotr's unopened property envelope on my desk and felt the last of my excuses for Amelia disappear. I met Naomi the next morning in a small office behind the Harbor Crest ballroom. Through the glass wall, staff were polishing silverware and carrying boxes of white roses toward the reception hall. Everything was moving forward, as if my daughter had not erased me from it. Naomi placed 4 printed pages between us. The first was an email sent from an address containing my name. It said I had suffered a severe emotional episode after Piotr's death and had chosen not to attend the wedding. The second instructed the hotel to remove me from the guest list and deny me access to the bridal floor. The third requested that any refunds be transferred to Amelia's personal account. The fourth was an authorization approving the additional $17,800. At the bottom was my signature. It looked almost right. That was what made it worse. Amelia had copied the long downward stroke I used in Katerina, but she had shaped the final letter the way she had as a child when signing Mother's Day cards. I touched the page once. "I did not write this." Naomi's expression tightened. "I suspected that. You are still the primary contracting party. We cannot process the additional charges without confirming directly with you." I asked when the emails had arrived. The first came 3 weeks ago. The payment authorization arrived last night, shortly after the rehearsal dinner. So Amelia had not excluded me in a moment of pressure. She had prepared my disappearance while I was still sewing pearls onto her gown. Naomi showed me the account history. My name appeared beside the venue deposit, catering, flowers, photography, and music. Amelia's name appeared only beside requests. "Do not alert her yet," I said. "Preserve every message and freeze any charge I have not personally approved." Naomi nodded. "And the wedding?" "The staff will be paid, the guests will be fed. I will not punish strangers for my daughter's choices." Outside the office, someone tested the ballroom microphones. Amelia's recorded welcome message filled the hall, warm and polished, thanking everyone who had made her dream possible. My name was not among them. I photographed every document, then called Graham Ellis, Piotr's estate lawyer. "Graham," I said, "I need to know whether my daughter has tried to give away something that still belongs to me." Graham asked me to bring the property envelope to his office immediately. By noon, I was sitting across from him in downtown Victoria, while rain traced thin lines down the window behind his desk. He opened the envelope carefully, then compared the unsigned transfer documents with Piotr's estate file. "The duplex is entirely yours," he said. Piotr discussed giving it to Amelia one day, but he never created a binding gift. "There is no completed transfer, no trust, and no clause requiring you to surrender the property." I looked at the signature line waiting for my name. Amelia and Daniel had chosen cabinets for a house they did not own. Graham turned his monitor toward me. "There is more." 2 months earlier, a mortgage broker in Vancouver had contacted his office asking when the James Bay title would be transferred. Amelia had submitted a gift letter stating that the property, worth nearly 1.4 million Canadian dollars, would belong to her and Daniel after the wedding. The letter carried another imitation of my signature. It also claimed the duplex would be used as security for a renovation loan. "They have already planned to borrow against it," Graham said. The room became very quiet. Piotr and I had spent 27 years paying for that house. He had replaced the windows himself. I had repaired wedding dresses at the dining room table until midnight to cover the mortgage. Amelia had treated those years as an asset waiting for her name. Graham offered to send a formal warning that afternoon. I shook my head. "Not yet." He studied me. "Katerina, they are trying to use your identity and your property. I know, but the caterers, musicians, and hotel staff have done nothing wrong. The wedding can continue. The lies cannot." I signed a letter revoking any proposed gift of the duplex and placed the unsigned transfer documents back into the envelope. Graham made certified copies of the hotel emails and the false gift letter. Before I left, he asked what I intended to do. "Let them have the celebration they chose," I said. "Tomorrow, they will also have the truth they chose." My phone rang as I stepped onto Fort Street. Amelia's voice was suddenly soft. She said there had been a misunderstanding. She said I could attend after all, but only if I came through the service entrance and brought the credit card linked to the hotel account. I stopped beneath the awning and listened until she finished. "I'll think about it," I told her. She heard surrender. I heard confirmation. By 9 o'clock that night, my daughter believed I had agreed to pay. I let her believe it. I returned to the duplex, placed Graham's certified copies beside the hotel documents, and made 3 folders. 1 for the false signatures, 1 for the property, 1 for every dollar I had spent. I had learned long ago that panic creates noise. Evidence creates consequences. Before bed, I called my bank and blocked any hotel charge that did not come with my direct approval. Then I sent Naomi written confirmation that all contracted staff should be paid exactly as agreed. The florists would not lose money. The musicians would still play. The servers would still carry dinner into the ballroom. I would not turn innocent workers into collateral damage. The next morning, I packed Amelia's finished gown in its white garment bag and delivered it to the harbor crest through the main entrance. I had stitched every last pearl. I had pressed every seam. My promise as her mother was complete, even if hers was not. At noon, Amelia posted a photograph of the dress online. Her caption thanked the creative team for making her dream possible. My name was absent. I closed the screen without commenting. Then I placed the pale blue dress Piotr loved across my bed. For several minutes, I considered wearing it to the ceremony. Not to cause a scene, only to see my daughter walk down the aisle. But Amelia had offered me a service entrance, a hidden seat, and permission to exist only if I brought my credit card. That was not an invitation. It was another invoice. At 3 o'clock, church bells carried across James Bay. I sat beside the window while the sky over Victoria turned silver. On the table were my folded place card, the sealed property envelope, and the letter revoking the gift. I did not cry. I listened to the bells until they stopped. At 5:42 p.m., my phone rang. Naomi's voice was low and urgent. Mrs. Nowak, your daughter has presented another authorization with your signature. This one approves the full reception balance and directs us to charge your account tonight. I looked at the folders on the table. Has it been processed? No. But she is insisting you approved it. I stood and reached for my coat. Tell her I'm coming, I said. Then I put on the pale blue dress. By the time I reached the harbor crest, the reception had already begun. Through the glass doors, I could see chandeliers reflected in rows of crystal glasses. Guests were laughing. A string quartet played near the ballroom entrance. My daughter's wedding looked exactly as she had imagined it, except for the truth waiting in the folder beneath my arm. Naomi met me near the administrative corridor. They're in the manager's office, she said. Mrs. Mercer is with them. Before we reached the door, my phone vibrated. A short video had arrived from my niece. Amelia stood beneath an arch of white roses, holding a champagne glass. My mother became overwhelmed and decided not to attend, she told the room. We're respecting her need for privacy, the guests murmured with sympathy. Amelia lowered her eyes at exactly the right moment. She had turned cruelty into concern and made herself look kind. I watched the clip twice. Then I placed my phone inside my handbag. In the office, Amelia was still wearing the gown I had sewn. Daniel stood beside her with his jacket unbuttoned. Margaret sat near the desk, impatient and composed. The false authorization lay in front of Naomi's supervisor. Amelia looked at my pale blue dress, then at the folder. You came, she said. Good. Sign the payment, and we can avoid embarrassing everyone. You told them I was unstable, I replied. Her face tightened. That was the simplest explanation. Margaret rose. This is not the place for family history, Katerina. The reception is already behind schedule. Daniel stepped forward. We just need the balance covered. Amelia said the house transfer was finished, so this is all temporary. I looked at him. Which house? The James Bay duplex, he said. Piotr left it to us. Amelia's hand closed around her champagne glass. That was when I understood the full shape of the lie. She had told me the house was a promise. She had told Daniel it was an inheritance. She had told the hotel my signature was permission. Did you see the title? I asked him. Daniel looked at Amelia. She did not answer. Voices approached in the corridor. Several guests had followed Margaret from the ballroom, curious about the delay. I placed Graham's letter on the desk. Then I set the false hotel authorization beside it. The duplex was never transferred, I said. My husband never left it to either of you, and I did not sign this. Amelia whispered my name like a warning. I opened the office door wider. No, I said. You have already spoken for me once tonight. Now they will hear what is true. The corridor fell silent before anyone asked a question. Amelia stood in the doorway wearing the gown I had finished at 2 a.m, every pearl catching the ballroom light. Behind her, guests leaned closer. Some held champagne. One held up a phone. I placed the first page on the desk. This hotel received an email saying I was too unstable to attend my daughter's wedding. Naomi stepped beside me. Mrs. Nowak did not send it, she said. I placed the second page down. This authorization approved $17,800 in new charges. Naomi's supervisor turned the document so Daniel could see it. The signature does not match the verified contract. Amelia looked at Margaret. Margaret looked at Daniel. No one looked at me. I opened the property folder. And this is the current title for the James Bay duplex. It remains in my name. Daniel took the page and read it twice. You said your father left it to us, he told Amelia. He wanted us to have it, she replied. That is not what you told me. Graham arrived from the lift carrying certified copies of Piotr's estate file. He spoke calmly. Mr. Nowak created no transfer, no trust, and no inheritance granting this property to the couple. Mrs. Nowak has formally withdrawn the proposed gift. The color left Daniel's face. Margaret's polished smile disappeared. Amelia turned toward the guests. My mother is doing this to punish me on my wedding day. I reached into my handbag and removed the place card she had pushed across the rehearsal table. My name was still hidden inside the fold. I did not come to ruin your wedding, I said. I came because you used my name after removing mine from the table. No one moved. From inside the ballroom, the band began another song, but the office remained still. The $58,000 I agreed to pay has already been honored, I continued. The additional charges belong to you and Daniel. The hotel staff will be paid, the musicians will play, dinner will be served. But my bank account and my home are no longer part of your marriage. Amelia whispered, You're my mother. Yes, I said. That was the one title you were ashamed to print. I placed the folded card in her hand. You did not uninvite your bank, Amelia. You uninvited your mother. A phone camera captured the sentence. By morning, the clip would travel far beyond Victoria. But in that moment, I cared only about Daniel stepping away from Amelia and following Graham into the office to ask what else she had hidden. I turned toward the main doors. This time, no one asked me to leave through the service entrance. 3 months after the wedding, the flowers were gone. The photographs had stopped circulating, and the short video from the hotel corridor was no longer the most important thing in my life. Amelia and Daniel paid the remaining $17,800 themselves. Their renovation loan collapsed when the lender confirmed that the James Bay duplex did not belong to them. Daniel moved into a furnished apartment in Vancouver while he decided whether a marriage built on hidden documents could be repaired. Margaret stopped calling. Amelia did not. At first, her messages were angry, then frightened, then apologetic. But every apology still included a request. Help with the hotel balance. Help with rent. Help explaining things to Daniel. I answered only once. I told her that I loved her, but love was not the same as access. If she wanted a relationship with me, it would begin with honesty, not an invoice. I kept the duplex, not to punish her. Pyotr and I had worked too long for it to become proof that betrayal could still be rewarded. By spring, I had removed the old kitchen cabinets Daniel had chosen and opened the ground floor to women who needed a second beginning. Some were recent immigrants. Some were widows. Some had spent decades caring for families and had forgotten that their own hands could still build something. We called it Starting Over Studio. I taught alterations on Tuesdays and Thursdays. A retired accountant named Marta helped the women price their work. Naomi arranged for the hotel to donate damaged linens we could use for practice. Graham helped create a small training fund in Pyotr's name. On the first morning, 6 women stood around my cutting table. Their accents came from Poland, Ukraine, Romania, and Croatia. No one apologized for how she sounded. I hung my pale blue dress in the office beside an old photograph of Pyotr holding our first Canadian business license. The folded place card remained inside my desk, not as a wound, but as a reminder. For years, I had mistaken being needed for being loved. I had paid bills, fixed problems, and made myself smaller so other people could feel important. That life ended in a hotel corridor. Nearly 1 year after the wedding, Amelia came to the studio alone. She did not bring paperwork. She did not ask for money. She stood beneath the new sign and said, I am ashamed of what I did. I opened the door, but I did not remove the boundary. Forgiveness, I had learned, was not surrender. It was an invitation to begin differently. For 35 years, I had altered dresses for women starting new lives. That spring, standing beneath my own name, I finally began altering mine.